Whether you're just getting started in Albion Online or you've been playing for a while and looking for a build that can do those higher level solo dungeons, remember when you are doing dungeons, dungeons can drop loot up to 2 levels higher than the dungeon level. So running a tier 6 or higher dungeon can give you tier 8 loot, so it's really, really profitable. And today I'm going to be talking about a Greataxe build that can solo tier 8 solo dungeons with a no problem at all. And then if you want to run the 8.1s, 2s, and 3s, this build is also viable for those. So I want to just go ahead and jump into the main build, but I do want to let everyone else know that I've also got a budget build. But we're going to get into the solo dungeon build, and then we'll get into the other variants on this build from there. Alright, so first off here, you guys can see my build. But this is the build that I choose when I am doing solo dungeons that are tier 7 or higher. Alright, and we're going to start off with the Greataxe itself. The Greataxe is a really good weapon at AoE. With its rending swing, you get to do damage to everything around you, and you get to put a bleed on those creatures. It does stack up to 3 times. And if you want to just go single target, you could just use Rending Strike. And for some bosses, you may actually want to switch to this. But Rending Strike is not what we're going to be focusing on in this particular build. We're also going to be using the level 70 talent for the W. This is Raging Blades, and the blades will spin around you and deal damage to all enemies around you. And if you hit up to 10 times, you'll get all 10 stacks, giving a full 40% increased damage. So if you are going to be going that single target build, you'll want to switch to Rending Strike, and you're also going to want to use Adrenaline Boost. Now the reason we're talking about Adrenaline Boost on the single target build is because if you're only hitting one target, you're only going to be able to get 5 stacks of Raging Blades, and that's going to be a total of 20% increased damage, whereas Adrenaline Boost will give you 25% increased damage. The cooldown on this is 20 seconds, where the cooldown on Raging Blades is only 12 seconds, so you will be able to use this more often. But against single target like bosses and things like that, where you might actually want to switch to single target, Adrenaline Boost is also going to give you a 50% movement speed boost, which can allow you to move out of the way of certain abilities and things like that. Also, the movement speed boost is cumulative with the Whirlwind ability. So that's the Greataxe in a nutshell. I'm also going to be using Aggressive Rush. If you're having problems with life gain, which you probably shouldn't with this build, you can use the Life Leech, or if you want the extra bleed, you could even use Deep Cuts. But I like to actually stack my poisons around the Aggressive Rush procs to make sure that I get that additional damage in. So we're gonna go back here to the items. Now, one of the big problems with this build is as you're going through dungeons and such, you're going to run out of mana, and your completion time is going to be based on your mana recharge rate. How quick you can get your mana back up is going to have a huge deal on your completion time of these dungeons. And when you're out doing tier 7 and tier 8 dungeons, you want to get in them, you want to get out of them as quickly as possible and get away with your loot. So you don't want to spend a lot of time, and that's why we're going with the Scholar's Cowl here. The energy shield on Scholar's Cowl will completely refill your energy if you're getting attacked by monsters. And again, in solo dungeons, you're the tank, you're the healer, and you're the DPS. So energy shield is going to just give you that energy back when you need it, and you can have this up every 30 seconds or more often than that with some of the other things that we're going to look at. Also, because this is a cloth helmet, we are going to be taking the 3.5% damage increase. Now, we're not going to be taking aggression on some of the other things, as this is a cooldown build. Now, for the chest, there's a couple different ways you can go about this, and I'll talk about the other one when we switch over to the budget version of this build. But I'm using the Hellion Jacket with the Lifesteal Aura. You have a minimum lifesteal and a maximum lifesteal here, so if you're below 20%, you're going to be getting that max. If you're above 80%, you're only going to be getting the minimum, but anywhere in between that, it will scale. So just you know, when you start getting low on your life, you'll proc this. It's also only got a 40-second cooldown, which is really, really good. And you could use the additional 4% damage boost, which I actually do use in the tier 8 and above dungeons. I haven't had to use them in the tier 7 flats. Tier 7 1s, 2s, I do tend to use the additional damage for the extra DPS. Also, if you are running this in groups or anything and you want to use the Hellion Jacket, it is viable. I would just switch over to the extra damage. But in solos, I actually like to go with the reduced cooldown build here with Quick Thinker. Now, for our boots, you can get away with pretty much any leather boots, but I prefer the Stalker shoes just because it's an artifact pair of shoes, and we can level our leather artifact with it. Again, if you're out in a group, you're going to want to go with the damage on this, but if you're in a solo dungeon, you're going to want to go with Quick Thinker to reduce your cooldowns overall. We're also going to be using Refreshing Sprint. Now, you can get this on any pair of leather boots, and we'll talk about that in the budget build, but Refreshing Sprint is going to reduce your cooldown slightly, and it's actually really, really good when you pair it with your adrenaline boost, because you can get your adrenaline boost back up more often, and you can just move through a dungeon, just completely cruise through these dungeons. A lot of times you may even want to skip like the first floor except for the bosses, and adrenaline boost paired with Refreshing Sprint will allow you to just run straight through the first floor. Alright, you'll also notice that when we go through our rotation and you activate your Lifesteal Aura and put up your damage effects, you can actually reduce the cooldown time of Lifesteal Aura down to a dramatically low, like below 20 seconds. Now, that's only for the 3 seconds that your Refreshing Sprint is active, but it will shave quite a few seconds off of your Lifesteal Aura, allowing you to get that back up pretty quick. We'll also get our Whirlwind back up faster so that we can Whirlwind more often. Being able to cast Lifesteal Aura multiple times in a single fight is absolutely wonderful. Also, for damage here, we're going to be using the Eel Stew. It'll give you a percentage of extra damage along with a percentage of cooldown reduction, depending on whether you're using tier 4, tier 6, or tier 8 Eel Stew. If you're in solo dungeons, though, my recommendation is, if you can afford it, use the Black Bog Clam Soup. This will give you a higher mana regeneration when you're out of combat, to allow you to completely top off in between fights. And if you are using the Black Bog Clam Soup, that'll allow you to not have to use the Lymhurst Cape. Now, if you are going to use any helmet other than the Scholar's Cowl, you're going to want to use a Lymhurst Cape. The Scholar's Cowl will allow you to use a damage cape, like we have the Demon Cape here, which will allow us to do extra damage, and this is really good if you're needing to get that extra damage on those bosses, or even the group pulls. You get to activate this with the auto attack and then like whirlwind around the lava pool to do additional damage. If you're still new with the build and you're not very comfortable and maybe even possibly dying more often, then you might want to actually go with the Undead Cape, because it will actually save you when you get down to below 25% health. You'll turn invisible. Now, that will reset the mobs, but it will also allow you to get away and then get another chance at the fight. And by all means, run the Undead Cape. It'll save you a ton of runes over time. But that's the basic build here. You can use whatever poisons you want. You can even use health potions or mana potions, but I personally haven't had mana problems since switching to the Scholar Cowl, and I think the Scholar Cowl is like one of the things that really make this this build viable, along with the Hellion Jacket. Now, I will post this stuff up on the screen so you guys can see exactly how we have the build laid out, so you'll be able to set your build up this way. But we're gonna switch over to a budget build really quick, and we're gonna talk about a couple of the other ways you could potentially run this if you didn't have the this particular build. So we're going to switch to what most of you will have at the beginning of the game. If you're just starting the game, you're not going to have access to, you know, a tier 6 Greataxe. Get it up to tier 4 and unlock your rending swing as quickly as you can, because rending swings your AoE damage. You're going to want to get those bleeds on everything around you. You don't have raging blades yet, so just use the adrenaline boost. It is a really good ability. And then use whirlwind. Also, you're not going to have the extra damage bonus until you get a much higher level axe, so just use life leech, or you can use the additional bleed if you're not having problems and needing the life leech. Now, as far as, you know, the non-Hellion jacket, you can always just run the mercenary jacket with Bloodlust. Bloodlust is really good, and if you are running this build, you're just going to be stuck with balanced mind until you get up into a higher level jacket. If you do get that higher level jacket, you'll notice that, you know, the higher level leather jackets do have quick thinker on them, and then you'll be able to switch over to the reduced cooldowns build. So as you level this up, you'll be able to change that a little bit. Now, you'll also notice that even if you wanted to run, you know, something other than an artifact set of boots, you will not have the reduced cooldowns unless you get up to tier 6. A tier 4 set of assassin's boots do not have reduced cooldown on them, so you will have to go with the balanced mind here. But if you do get up to a tier 6 set of assassin's boots, you will be able to get access to the reduced cooldown. Now, as far as you know, budget builds on, you know, solos, you're just going to want to run cabbage soup so you can fill your health back up in between pulls, and that's pretty much it for the budget build. Now, there's another build if you're out doing fame farms with groups, and, you know, you have someone there that does have access to you know, maybe a druid's cowl, some other way to keep your mana up. Then there's an entire another build. I will post up the budget build here for you guys so that you can take a look at how we have the budget sets laid out. So we're going to switch over to a build that I would run if I was running in a group, and this is actually like the full Stalker build. We're using the Stalker jacket, and the Stalker jacket gives you the reduced cooldowns, but in a fame farm, I'm not going to worry about the reduced cooldowns so much. I want to have as much damage as I can per pull, and out of that, we're going to do Electric Field, which will unleash an electric field around you and dealing damage twice per second. This will just you know, electrocute everything around you. It's a really good ability. You can pair this with your other abilities. So you would use your rending swing to put a bleed on everything, pop up your electric field, and then hit your blades along with your mortal agony, and then your whirlwind on top of that. And if you do everything very fast, you'll maximize your damage output. But the big difference here is we're running the Stalker Helm for mortal agony, and you want to put this further into your rotation because you want your the enemy's health total to be as low as possible when you actually pop mortal agony, so that you can reduce their resistances, which will help you just finish those enemies off. So mortal agony is really good. If you don't happen to have a way to keep up your mana in the group, you can always just swap over to energy gain. So it's still a versatile helmet. As you know, you can always just go energy regain in between pulls and such. But if you know your group has the mana for you, whether they're running druid cowls or not, or whatever, you can get away with mortal agony. So that's the full Stalker build. I will hold that up for you guys to check it out. We are going damage, not cooldowns on that build, except for refreshing sprint. We are still keeping refreshing sprint so that, you know, we can be ready per fight. Now you're definitely going to want that Lymhurst cape with that build. Alright, so next here is a chase build. If you're out ganking with a group, now this is not for solo ganking, because when the deed is done, your character is going to be at 50% or less health. So we're going to look at a very funny. In this build, we're definitely going to be going with the Undead Cape. All right, so Undead Cape, absolute must. I have seen people run it with the Thetford Cape, but I find that you're in some serious danger when you finally catch the enemy and you dismount them. But let's look at what makes this build so cool. Alright, so the first ability here is going to be Motivating Pain. Now, Motivating Pain comes off of the Quarrier boots, and this is the special for the Quarrier boots, right? Motivating Pain will increase your movement speed by 50% and your max load by 200%. We don't care about the max load, but it's for 8 seconds. Every time you take damage, your movement speed is further increased by 30%. Now you may be like, no, how's that going to help me dismount, enemies that are trying to run away? They're not going to be doing damage to me. Do I have to run through mobs in order to take damage? Well, that's actually feasible. There might be times where you just do that. But for the most part, you're actually going to do the damage to yourself, and that's where our jacket comes in. When we look at our chest ability, we get Self-Ignition. Now this comes off of the Spectre jacket. Self-Ignition damages yourself and enemies around you in a 6-meter radius. While active, it also reduces your healing received by 50%. So you're taking some serious damage, you're dealing out some serious damage, but because you're doing damage to yourself, you're going to activate your Quarrier's boots. Now, as soon as you get 3 damage, or you do damage to yourself 3 times, you can actually turn off your Spectre jacket, but I would leave it on until you've got them off of their mount. At which point, once you get them off of their mount, you're going to then need some way to save yourself. Personally, I like Retaliate on the Hunter's hood, but maybe you don't have leather hoods, maybe you have plate hoods. The other option is to use a Demon Helmet. Demon Helmets will allow you to silence the enemy as soon as they're off of their mount. Then they will not actually have their abilities for almost 7 seconds. Your next normal attack will silence the enemy for 6.9 seconds. So you do have to actually hit them with a normal attack to silence them, but either way you're going to be able to stop damage. Either you hit Retaliate and you reflect all incoming damage, is 100% reliant on your buddies being there to finish the deal. You can catch them. You can catch a mounted person. However, once you catch them, you're hurt. So again, we're going to need the Demon Cape and some way to protect ourselves. And since the helmet has nothing to do with the build, the best thing I have found to put on the helmet is either Retaliate or some way to save yourself, like Hush. Now you could also use like a Knight's helmet to make sure that they can't root you, so that you can run away once it's done. Also remember that your cooldowns will be down. You are out of buttons to push by the time you get them off their mount, but they will be off their mount. At that point, your group can come in, clean up, and take care of things from there. For that though, you're going to want at least a tier 6 poison. If you can afford a tier 8 poison, that's going to make dismounting your opponents even easier. And then for the food, when I'm running that particular build, I actually like to run the sandwiches, either a mutton sandwich or a beef sandwich. Beef sandwiches will give you 13.5% extra max health. The extra health, again, you're killing yourself to get them off their mount. It is dangerous, but like everything in Albion, higher risk, higher reward. So a little bit about capes here. The Thetford Cape, you can use that. Again, if you're having problems with mana, you're always going to want to use the Lymhurst Cape, but if you don't have problems with mana, then you can get away with the Chain Lightning. This is good for AoE pulls. It's going to do damage every 15 seconds to up to 4 enemies. So this is ready multiple times per pull, and is almost always ready during the pull. So like if you want your cape there as part of your augmented damage every single pull, then you can use the Chain Lightning. If you're more worried about doing that additional damage to the bosses and such, then you're going to want the Demon Cape. If you're still having problems staying alive and you want to make sure that you get your loot out of the dungeon and you don't lose your stacks, or maybe you want to carry extra poisons with you and you don't want to lose those, then go with the Undead Cape. And again, if you're having mana problems, the Lymhurst Cape is by far the way to go. Your food is going to be very important to change to the proper food based on what particular thing you are doing. And then that's pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the battle axe in a nutshell. So real quick, I will show you guys the chase build, since we have that on. The chase build is very, very fast and it is really good. I do run adrenaline boost with this particular build. Remember, anytime that we're actually doing single target, we're on the chase build. Now, you don't have to go rending strike if you don't want, because you're not going to be able to get more than one strike in anyway, and you're mainly just worried about getting the bleed on your opponent. But what you're going to do is you're going to run your adrenaline boost for the additional 50% movement speed. You'll also get the 50% movement speed off of motivating pain, and then the 3 stacks of 30%. So altogether, that alone is 190%. Pair that with the extra 20% you get from your whirlwind, you're moving at 210% for a few moments there, staggered across your cooldowns. But what you'll do is you will turn on your self-ignition first. Now, the reason you have to do self-ignition first is because self-ignition is a toggle. You'll notice that your character will take a quick little dip. I'll show you guys normal movement speed really quick, and then your character will toggle, and I'll do this slowly and not extremely quick, so there's going to be a little bit of lost time here, but we're going to go self-ignition, which will do damage to ourselves. Then we're going to hit motivating pain. Then we're going to hit our adrenaline rush, and then you can turn off self-ignition and start your whirlwind. It is extremely fast to move this way, and you will take your enemy down. Now, there's, depending on how good you get at this, you can slip your poison in before you hit your whirlwind, but your whirlwind must be the end of the combination. If you do not wait to push your whirlwind, you're done. Like, you've messed up the rotation. So make sure that your E is the last thing to do. Preferably you want to go in this order: R, F, W, catch them, press Q, 1, E. Or you can, as you're catching them, press 1 Q E. Just depending on how quick you get to them, you're going to want to go through your rotation like that. So again, you're going to go R, and then you're going to hit your E, your F. Once you get there, you'll hit your W, and then I have a habit of turning my self-ignition off. Sorry. Just because I don't like to get down that low on health. If you're confident in your ability to get away or to turn off your self-ignition, you can run a Keeper Cape. I don't have one of those with me, but if you are going to be confident with your ability to get away, then you can run the Keeper Cape, leave your self-ignition on a little bit longer to make sure that you proc your Keeper Cape, but it's a really, really fast build. 210% can catch dire wolves. Anyone who decides they want to prod against you, they've made a mistake. You're going to catch them. So again, really fun build. Hope you guys all enjoy the Greataxe. No matter how you want to play it, there are a lot of different ways to play it, and if you choose the proper set of gear for the action that you are doing, you're going to get a lot of fun out of the Greataxe and a lot of versatility, along with just having a really viable weapon in a lot of different situations. It is highly worth leveling up, and if you like melee, then you're going to love Whirlwind. It's one of the most classic abilities you can get a hold of. Also, if you guys do want to join Albion Online, if you've never played Albion Online and you happen to be watching this video, there's a link in the description box where you can download the game for Windows, Android, iOS, Mac. So whether you're playing on your Apple phone or your Android phone, your PC or your Mac. Albion's a great game for it. It also works on tablets and things. So yeah, check out Albion Online. Check out the Greataxe build. If you are wanting to get into the game and you're wanting a nice place to start, there is a starter guild over in Lymhurst. You can look it up. It's called Magic and Gathering, which is run by members of our Magic the Gathering community, along with a few others, Tier 1 Jank and I think Boros Boons and a few others. So if you guys want to get in on that, you can just hit us up in game or search for Magic and Gathering. We'll be more than happy to let you into the guild. Again, starter guild, and then as you advance into the game, and get further into the game, you can move on. But my name's Eric. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.